because we're told that something's wrong with us. And I think that's a problem with our healthcare system in a lot of ways. We over medicalize things. We talk about degenerative disc disease, and people think that they're going to have major problems because of that. And I'm a big analogy guy, as you found out, and I love the analogy of wrinkles, and how as we age we get wrinkles on the outside. That's just the way it is. And just because you have wrinkles, we don't go out to the grocery store and say, that person's wrinkles, therefore they have pain. That person's wrinkles, therefore they have pain. That person doesn't have wrinkles, they must be feeling fine. We're not saying that, right? Wrinkles just happen.
Right.
But as we age, things on x-rays and MRIs, we look at them and say, oh, they got DDD, they got degenerative disc disease, they must have pain. That's the reason for their pain. And it's just not the case. Food is more than just energy. It is information. And
ooh, that's good.
This is a revolution to fight for truth, fight for the people who trust us with their health, and fight for research-backed action. This is a fight to purge baseless trends and customs in healthcare. This is a revolution to change the steps of healthcare from reactive medicine to preemptive medicine. Our vision is to be the catalyst for a system of proactive healthcare versus reactive healthcare. This is Impetus Health. Hey guys, welcome to Impetus Health, podcast that's talking about all things healthcare and how we want to see healthcare change and move in the future, and try to give you guys and ourselves some great education on what is good health and good healthcare practices look like. We have one of my best friends in the world, Mr. Kyle Thibodeaux, on today. Kyle is a doctor of physical therapy. He has a certified strength conditioning specialist, CSCS. We actually got our CSCS at the same time. You got yours a little bit before me. And he is an orthopedic clinical specialist as well, and that's another physical therapy certification. But Kyle is well-versed in all things the body. He is incredibly knowledgeable on topics. I'll call Kyle just to ask him questions all the time and see what he thinks about it. So we're super happy to have you on, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And what's your physical therapy clinic, the name of your clinic?
Yeah, it's Refined PT and Performance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In Mobile, Alabama. So if y'all are in Mobile and you need help, he's the guy to go to. Him and Tyler Vaughn.
And appreciate the shout out there.
All right, so Kyle, real quickly, man, give us a little bit of your background of kind of like where you came from, high school days, how healthcare, not really healthcare, but just tell us a little bit about your background and how you wanted to get into physical therapy and knowing about the body.
Yeah, so growing up, played sports. Obviously with sports, most likely going to have some type of injury at some point, playing year round with everything. So got hurt, tore MCL, PCL in my right knee in football in high school. And so started to dive into, I guess, the healthcare realm a little bit more, and wanted to be orthopedic surgeon at first. And then I got to college and realized that I think I was doing that maybe for the wrong reasons, more for status and that sort of thing. And actually, some big things happened in my life in college. My mindset changed, and my heart was changed from the inside out. Became a Christian, and some things changed to where that was no longer necessarily my long-term goal, and my heart changed and wanted to be a PT and engage with people. So I went to physical therapy school and met old Sean Hiller, and started really just digging deep into PT and pain and how I could help people, and it's kind of where I am now.
Awesome.
That's awesome. And again, I'll say Kyle is super knowledgeable about, man, there's so many things in the PT world. I remember going through school and I would ask you, if I had a question about something, I would ask you and you would try to clear it up for me. It was incredible.
Kept him in line.
You did, but
annoyed him too.
And you ministered to me incredibly too, and you changed my eternity as well. So thank you for being God's tool to use. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
Love you, brother. What we want to talk about today is pain, and pain is something that is really misunderstood in the scientific world. We don't know as much about pain as we like to say we do sometimes. And I know you've dove into pain so much more than I have, and I want to learn from you and ask you some questions about pain. And I think one of the things that a lot of people want to hear, whether they're having pain, just kind of random pain or chronic pain or maybe post-surgical pain, whatever type of pain they have, trying to think of the questions that those guys want to know to clear up maybe how they're feeling a little bit. So if you could tell us a little bit about kind of how you got into pain, wanted to learn more about pain. Why was that an area that you thought very beneficial to learn about? And start diving into a little bit how pain plays a role in the body, if you can.
Yeah. So kind of like I said, I think I didn't really have an interest in pain until I realized I was going to be working with people in pain for my career.
Yeah.
And so I think it's probably important for me to dive a little bit deeper. And, we start to define like what does a physical therapist do? What does a personal trainer do? What does a massage therapist do? And all these different things. And I think the background of the PT, we do a lot of manual work. We do a lot of exercise. We do all these different things. But I think the differentiator between, me just being a personal trainer is my knowledge of pain and how to help guide someone through their pain experience. So that allowed me to really dive into that and really see the complexity of pain. And I felt like it was imperative for me to learn that so I could help people navigate that experience specific to what they have going on, because it is very individualized, and there's not so easy as what we tend to think in society of damage equaling pain. It's not that simple. So just want to dive deeper to be able to help more people, really. So that's kind of why I started digging deep into the research and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So diving into the research and kind of figuring out what was some of the common themes that you were finding with pain that you would try to implement in the clinic when you would see a patient who was in pain and you would try to describe it to them.
Yeah, I would say, we're still learning a lot about pain as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff we don't necessarily understand, but we've come a long way, and the definition of pain is constantly evolving, decade to decade as we learn more and more. And there's certain phenomenon that we can't explain, and then we start to dive deeper into it, and so then we start to have a different definition. So it can get really complex, but to keep it really simple, I think, and more relative to the listeners out there, hopefully. We have some listeners to this one. Hopefully it doesn't deter them away when they see pain. But as far as keeping it very relative to our listeners, I think the main things are the myths that we have in society of, you have a rotator cuff tear, therefore you need to have surgery. You have a meniscus tear, therefore you need to have surgery. You have all these, disc bulge, therefore you're doomed for the rest of your life. You have degenerative disc disease. We're all going to have degenerative disc disease at some point. It's just we've created this disease that's not really a disease. It's just a normal part of aging. So I think that's the main thing that I've learned that's been important for me to shift my framework when I first learned that, to be able to empower people and let them know that, hey, like, you are not, your scan, your X-ray, your MRI, you're not that. There's hope for you. And there's lots of different ways to combat pain, and that may or may not be the reason for your pain.
Yeah, and you got me thinking. We have the conversation in the clinic, and I know you do too all the time, about MRIs and things like that. Someone comes in, and honestly, the MRI will terrify someone, and there's studies on you have an MRI and your pain levels go up just because you've seen the structure, and all of a sudden you've identified yourself with that structure being affected. And I was trying to pull it up while you were talking about that, but there was just a study that came out, and you might have seen it on cervical neck disc, and I'm trying to find it, but basically what they were saying in the study, I think I've got it right here. Yeah, I think so. So basically, I can't find it exactly, but basically what they were saying was, it was one of those, another study that we see all the time where they took like 2,000 to 3,000 people. I can't remember the exact number. And none of those people had pain. They were all asymptomatic, but 72% of them had some type of cervical disc bulge or even a herniation, but nobody had pain. And then they see the results and they start having a little bit of pain. So dive into that a little bit. How pain is totally perceptive, like somatosensory. How would you relate pain to someone who comes in and they say, Kyle, my doctor says I have a L4, L5 disc bulge, and that's why I have my back pain. What kind of conversation do you try to have?
Yeah. So I think it is very specific to the person and where they're at and their understanding of pain. So I definitely tailor it specific to the individual who's in front of me, and where they're at. If they're fearful, if they're not, and all these different things. If I want to dive into certain conversations or not too. So it's definitely individualized, and I'm sure it is on your end too. But I usually have to de-educate in some way, like we talked about. They come in with MRI or an X-ray and say, "Hey, this is my problem. Can we fix this structure or whatever?" And I have to de-educate them in the sense of, "Hey, we don't need to hone in on this one thing." Most likely, there's research on the on the low back specifically showing that only 10% of the time can we identify one single structure or the actual area that's causing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we call it non-specific low back pain. It's not saying that there isn't some type of structure. It's just the fact that we can't identify the structure, and neither can your X-ray MRI.
Yeah.
So there's no real reason to actually get it if there's no red flags.
Mm-hmm.
Red flags, past history of cancer, night pain, all these other things. So we are, we're learning more and more, but right now we cannot identify a single structure, and there might not even be a structure involved. So I treat based off patterns. I don't treat based off of the structure itself. So I de-educate usually first, and then I start to educate what pain actually is. And just going through that, I like to start off with, pain is actually a good thing that we can experience it. If we can't experience pain, we're going to have some problems, because pain ultimately is a protective mechanism. You step on glass, you're going to want to know. You don't want to step on glass and bleed out. That's not cool, right? So we want to know when we have pain. I think that's a beneficial thing, just based off of protection. A lot of people will use the analogy of an alarm system. Sometimes the alarm system can go off if there's been too many signals too often. The alarm system can become more sensitive, and they start to describe pain in that way. But I go into some of those analogies, just showing that, hey, pain is a good thing first off, but sometimes pain can be, your body can be oversensitive to certain signals and produce it even when there's not really a threat. So pain is really based off of perceived threat. And so I'll go into some of those different analogies as well and talk about the difference. I don't really I try not to use big words like nociception, but we have to differentiate between nociception and pain. And for the sake of the podcast, we have these nerve receptors called nociceptors that help with, they help regulate different temperatures like noxious, elevated threshold temperatures, for instance. So we call that mechanical, thermal, and chemical nociceptors. And as far as the mechanical ones, you have light touch. Let's say that I was touching Sean's shoulder. I was lightly touching it. Not going to think that's causing any pain. It's just picking that up, sending it to the brain. But if I press deep enough, it's going to produce some type of, pain or something if I press deep enough. And so those nociceptors are actually sending signals up to the brain because I'm pressing really hard. Then you can go into the thermal, and I think the best analogy is a hot shower. I've gotten a lot of these just from my readings from Jared Hall and Adrian Lowe and some other guys, and explain pain. But a hot shower, when you first step into a hot shower, your body's not ready for it if it's hot enough, right? And so you're like, oh, man, I gotta wait. And then you start to slowly introduce your body to the heat from the water, and then that same temperature is tolerable, and you realize it's not a threat. And so I like to use that analogy as well. And then getting into the chemical, like if there's a bruise or some type of scab, even just a light touch, there's chemicals around that area because it's trying to heal, and just even a light touch to that spot can cause some changes there just with the chemical piece. But I don't always go into those specific things with everybody, but just for our understanding on the podcast, that's more like the nociception piece. But pain can actually be totally separate from that. There's a piece of nociception that can be involved, but it doesn't have to have that process to actually experience pain. And this is the stuff that's mind blowing to me, and I think it's so cool. And I'm a nerd, just as Sean is, and Ellie, I'm sure.
She's a nerd.
I know Ellie's a nerd too. With certain things, maybe not on pain, but on nutrition and exercise and all of that health. I'm sure you're a nerd if you married Sean.
Yeah. Well, we are both nerds. But I do have a question. I have a question on that real quick, just out of curiosity. When people talk about their pain tolerance or pain threshold, is that something that is like nature or nurture? Like, are you born with that? Or like, is that something that if you have like chronic pain, you kind of like just adapt and become accustomed to that? Or I don't know.
That's a hard question. I don't know if I can answer that question and say it with 100% certainty.
Yeah.
But I do think that people have different pain tolerances. I do think that's the case, but there's no way for me to truly measure that. Except for subjectively. There's like, pain pressure thresholds and stuff we could get more objective with, but subjectively, people always, there are a very, 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 very small amount of people who come into the clinic. Sean, you tell me if this is true, who say they have a low pain tolerance. You always hear like on the eval day, I have a high pain tolerance, so my scale is going to be different than everyone else. And that's the main thing we get. So when you hear that and then you see people react differently, some people might say, I have a high pain tolerance, and something that looks very simple is a 5 out of 10 for them or whatever. And then the next person says I have a high pain tolerance, and it's a 1 out of 10, and for the same thing. And so it's very specific to the person. But there are some studies looking at some persistent chronic pain conditions, I guess you'd call it, and how their body does respond differently to stimuli, causing pain to be I guess experienced more often. Yeah. And so like fibromyalgia and that sort of thing. Some of those people do have, I guess their body potentially is, we're still learning. It is still more prone to experiencing some type of pain. I guess the threshold could be lower for producing some of these messages, and then the brain perceiving it a certain way.
And I don't want to dive too far down the rabbit hole, but quick question, like in the same way that someone adapts to a hot shower once they ease into it, is that the same with pain? Like if you have a chronic pain problem, does your body adapt to it and like lower the scale, or is that just subjective too?
I think it could go either way. I think it can go either way. And so my analogy with like, and this, I hope this is relative, like progressive overload principles just in rehab, I'll always use like the reading level analogy. Like if we're in second grade, let's say we have little Ellie in second grade, and little Ellie is trying to learn how to read better. We can't read 12th grade and we can't read kindergarten.
Right.
If we read 12th grade, it's gonna be too much stress, and we're not gonna be able to adapt. Same thing with reading kindergarten. It's too easy. There's no stress there. That's really gonna allow for adaptation. And so if we read 3rd or 4th grade, maybe 5th grade or 6th grade for Ellie, and 2nd grade, I'm sure advanced reader, we could challenge her a little bit more to where you adapt. In the same sense, I mean, that might be a bad analogy in some ways, but that's the analogy I use for building strength. When it comes to pain, totally different. But if we always are pushing into pain for the chronic pain patient, sometimes it can keep things sensitive, where we actually have to bring that back. Whereas in some people, they can actually build up tolerance to certain things and allow them to be more resilient and not experience it. So I think it is very specific to the person and what they have going on. So great question though.
Yeah,
that's good. And that leads us into the most common question. Well, one of the most common questions that I'm sure you get and I get too is, can I push through this? Is this something I can push through? Do I need to keep going? And I think you nailed it when you said it's very individualized and personalized on that approach. And there's some things that happen with the body that it's probably fine for us to really push and really get after this and kind of warn the person if they're able to say, hey, this might not feel the best, but this is going to be better in the long run. And that's another almost psychological thing you have to kind of pick out with someone. Is this the type of person who can take that approach? Or is this someone who's had this issue for 10 years and we don't want to add more sensitivity to it, and we may call it a day after they've done something that they're happy, something they're proud with, to start to curb that pain feeling. So I totally get what you're saying. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying absolutely. I'm totally there, and it is individualized to the person.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's fun to navigate.
It is, yeah. I wouldn't know. Oh, it's fun, but we can navigate.
Well, I'm saying I think it's very cool. I guess it makes it fun to navigate people's different personalities and different responses to things.
Yeah.
If it was all cut and dry, there's an answer. We really wouldn't need us.
Mhm.
Like there wouldn't be a need for relationships. It'd be here's a sheet of paper, go do it.
Yeah, that's right. So kind of moving on a little bit into some of the really the most common thing that people ask about with pain, or one of the things is, what role do you believe that medication plays in curbing or helping pain? How do you have that conversation about painkillers or medication as far as that goes with pain?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to go back real quick.
Okay.
And just talk about what pain is still. So the nociception piece, we talked about that. There's some type of noxious stimulus that sends messages up to the brain. The higher processing centers in the brain can decide if it's threatening or not. If it's threatening, they produce pain. If it's not, they will not. So we won't actually experience pain unless our brain considers it threatening. So I like to use a couple other analogies for understanding pain and threat and perceived threat, I guess you'd say. So with that, I like to use the ankle sprain analogy. Walking across the street, let's say you're walking across the interstate and you sprain your ankle, but there's no one on the road. Do you think that you would have pain or not? And most people would say, probably so. There's no cars coming, right? So it hurts. You hobble across the street. You get across, you're still hurting, blah, 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 blah. Right. Next, you walk across the street, across the interstate. It's really busy. You're running out, trying to, get before the 18-wheelers come. You're trying to run across real quick. You sprain your ankle, you fall down. In that moment, do you think that you would experience pain or not? You have 18-wheeler coming at you. So is the ankle sprain more threatening, or is the 18-wheeler more threatening? And I think most people would say, hey, something's going to kick in. You're not going to care. You're not going to experience pain there. You're going to get across the street regardless, right? And you hear some of those crazy stories. So that just goes to show it's based off perceived threat. When you get across the street, there's no more threat of the 18-wheeler. Pain may be experienced from there. Also going into phantom limb pain. People have, amputee. They have their, below knee amputation. But they still have pain in the foot that's no longer even there. So we know that it doesn't require some type of message from the bottom up all the time. That's not required. We can have pain produced in our brain as an output without even having some type of sensory information coming in. So moving from understanding those concepts into medication, we have to look again at the individual. I personally never. I'm a minimalist, and Sean, you know that I'm a minimalist to the extreme. And so with that, I definitely do not like taking medication. I don't like my patients taking medication. I do think that medication can be effective in curbing, and relieving someone's pain. Absolutely, but is that the best route to take? Are we just masking something, or are we actually eliminating something? That's where we're at. And so, if someone never takes any pain medication, and they take it one time, it eliminates it, never comes back. By all means, I'm not going to tell you, hey, don't take that. I still don't like medication, but I'm not going to tell you not to. But when it comes to the point where people take medication over and over and over, and they take it every 4 hours, and for 4 hours, there's pain relief to some extent, and then that 4 hour window's up, and now their pain's back to where it was, and it's just a continuous cycle, and the pain always continues despite taking the medication. I think that we have to say, look, pain medication is just helping relieve it a little bit. There's something else going on, and we have to do something about it. We can't just keep taking this medication. So yeah, it's a split answer, individualized, but I hope that answers the question.
Yeah,
it's so fascinating to me, because it just clicked when you said pain doesn't always start from the bottom up. Like we would in the hospital, we would have patients who were brain dead. Everything else was operating perfectly. And we would jam a pin, sometimes like a needle, into their toe and wouldn't flinch at all, And it's just fascinating, like how much it's in the brain, all it's just so interesting. Like there wasn't even a tiny movement. And I mean, we knew why that was happening, but I mean, their body just didn't respond. So it's fascinating.
It shows how complex the brain is. Yeah,
definitely.
And I'm gonna something too that and we're getting the tick down on the Zoom call right now. We have the free version, so it's down. We got
I don't think it'll actually shut off because it's only 2 people.
Okay, well, we will find out either way. But one of the things that I try to say about pain, and tell me if you agree with this, or I really want to know. If I have someone who is not sleeping at all and they're asking for pain medication, basically my recommendation is let's take the lowest dose or take something that will allow you to sleep, just because of the importance of sleep for pure recovery. Do you agree with that, or would you try to say something?
I'm cool with that. Absolutely.
Okay.
I guess it depends on the person again, but most of the time, yes.
Yeah.
So the main things we talk about, I talk about low hanging fruit and just health in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we're here for orthopedic condition, a lot of times we claim that orthopedic things are actually truly orthopedic things, but they're actually health problems,
Yeah.
And so, especially when you look at like frozen shoulder, we know the risk factors for frozen shoulder are type 2 diabetes and obesity and some waist circumference things, and so it's way more complex. We think it's just some the capsules getting tight of the shoulder, but really there's some underlying health issues that are probably contributing to the problem, or the actual only contribute. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're learning more on it, and so I like to start with the low hanging fruit, like you said, Sean, and talk about physical activity, exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress, and tobacco. Those are my big 5 I'll talk about, and make sure that we're addressing those. We might go one at a time, but I want to make sure that we're at least discussing them and see where the low hanging fruit is out of those 5, and try to make some change in the health piece to help with their pain experience.
Yeah, cool. Would love to talk about that one too, that low hanging fruit. So you had the one on here next was the one that you want to ask, right?
Y'all hit on this. So I just was gonna ask, in terms of me when I was in the hospital, we would have patients and we would ask, okay, what's your pain score on a level of 0 to 10? And y'all asked that too, but it was interesting. Like before they would find out their diagnosis, typically the pain score in most cases would increase after they found out what they had. And I guess my question is, how much does perceived pain affect, or I guess I think my wording is wrong, but if we're told we have something after the fact, does that increase our pain score? Like, can we intuitively know we have something that could cause pain?
Yeah, I think the majority of people, it probably does, because we're told that something's wrong with us. And I think that's a problem with our healthcare system in a lot of ways. We over-medicalize things. We talk about degenerative disc disease, and people think that they're going to have, major problems because of that. And I'm a big analogy guy, as you found out. And I love the analogy of wrinkles, and how as we age, we get wrinkles on the outside. That's just the way it is. And just because you have wrinkles, we don't go out to, the grocery store and say, that person has wrinkles, therefore they have pain. That person has wrinkles, therefore they have pain. That person doesn't have wrinkles. They must be feeling fine. We're not saying that, right? Wrinkles just happen.
Right.
But as we age, things on x-rays and MRIs, we look at them and say, oh, they got DDD. They got degenerative disc disease. They must have pain. That's the reason for their pain. And it's just not the case.
Yeah.
And so those are just wrinkles on the inside. And that's the analogy. And I just think it's a great way to understand that sort of thing.
That.
But ultimately pain scales are hard. When we go into that, and it is very specific to the person. And I think just people knowing that something's wrong with them from what a doctor has told them carries a lot of weight, and it will increase that.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm sure you'll have to implement a lot of psychological strategies in as well to kind of help rebalance that pain scale.
And you do too with what you do with nutrition.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what role do you think good nutrition and fitness play in how we perceive pain or feel pain?
Yeah, I'll defer this to. I'm just kidding. I would, but I'm not, an RD or anything of that sort. But I do know that it does play a significant role, and I do address it in the clinic, at least on a small scale. And if I feel like they need more help, then I'll defer out from there. But I know that food is more than just energy; it is information, and
Ooh, that's good.
I'm stealing all this from other people.
I love it.
But it is, and it does change. I'm not gonna go in detail about epigenetics or anything of that sort, but it does change the way our genes can be expressed based off what we eat and the different markers, blood markers and inflammation and all this different type of stuff, low level inflammation, depending on who you read and what they think is going on with systemic problems. So nutrition definitely plays a huge role in it, and it's low hanging fruit. It's just hard to change, right? Atomic habits. It's hard to do. It's hard. So that's the piece. And then, we talk about fitness and health, and I think you have to define the two, because, competing in the sport of CrossFit, fitness can be very unhealthy.
Yes.
So we have to talk about like exercise as a health piece versus a fitness piece, and going into that. And I think that exercise is one of the biggest ways to combat pain.
Yeah.
Aerobic exercise for just systemic problems, and then even, very isolated contractions to a specific area for local pain relief, isometrics for tendons and all these different things. I think that they play a huge role in that.
Okay, so these are questions that we end every podcast on, and we just like to know something that you're doing right now that's making your life better. It could be a new habit, or it could be something you've done your whole life.
Yeah, and that is a hard answer, and I thought about it a little bit since this thing cut off. But I think what I was saying before it cut off was I've always enjoyed, a lot of people hated middle school, hated high school, but they enjoyed a certain area of a certain time of life. And I really have, I think, enjoyed life for the most part. So I'm super thankful for that. But right now, what I'm doing, and I'm passionate about, and I feel like life is better because of it. It's, weird time with coronavirus, but I'm very thankful for work and for business, and I'm starting to see that I think God has gifted me with special desire to build businesses and work in the business world more so than just PT. And so learning more about that, and just enjoying work and seeing the purpose of work, and seeing that, God designed us to work, and being able to enjoy that. I feel like that's really making my life better, honestly. And just, continue to deepen relationships. And I talk about it often to Rachel. Don't want to get too deep here now. But just how life is always better with someone else. Personally, it is for me, at least. Like I can go to the Grand Canyon, and I went recently. I think how I got brought up, actually. Like the Grand Canyon would have been a lot of fun by myself. But to be able to enjoy the Grand Canyon with someone else is so much more fun.
Yeah.
And so just, having relationships and continuing to deepen those relationships, I feel like and being able to have, experiences with those people that I love and enjoy to be around. I think it makes my life better. So this podcast was making my life better.
Oh,
amen. I love it.
You can ask me.
Okay, so kind of on that same strain, and we're trying to get into something maybe you've done in the past, but what is something that you are not doing right now, but would make your life better if you were to start doing that?
Yeah. That's going to be a convicting question. But a couple things. I think one would be getting more consistent with exercise. I've been getting 3 days a week. That's been my goal. That's been my goal for the past little while with starting this business. So we've kind of set out to keep each other accountable at our clinic, because we know the importance of it. But it is so easy to put aside our own health for other people's health. And, ultimately it goes so far, but it's not sustainable either. And we have to keep ourselves healthy to be able to keep other, to help other people be healthy. And I think getting more consistent with exercise, I would like to get back up to, 5 days a week. That would be a lot of fun. And I think I'd feel better too. And I've shifted my I guess approach to exercise. Like, I just want to move. I don't care to compete. I would like to keep everything at a conversation pace for the most part. That's fun to me. Lift heavy weights and then do some aerobic work and, make sure it's truly aerobic and keep in conversation pace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that is fun and I would enjoy that, but I don't really have a desire to jump over a box or anything of that sort right now. So
yeah,
I just want to squat, deadlift, bench, and ride a bike and run a little bit and do some circuit stuff.
I think that's good.
Love it.
I like that.
Yeah. So that's one. And then also I think just being still, like sitting down. I know, Sean, you're probably right there with me. Ellie,
convicting me
maybe
of
so.
These topics.
Yeah.
I think that's hard for me to do, just be still. And not just be still and read a book and learn. I just want to, can I sit down and just sit down? I don't know. That's hard for me to do, just sit down and sit down or read something that's fictional and not always trying to learn. I love to learn, but I just think I need to sit and watch something that makes no sense, like some story that was some movie or something that has no, realistic component to it. I feel like that would probably be healthy for me because I don't necessarily care to do that all the time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Just be still.
I love it.
You're convicting me right now with the be still stuff. Okay.
Well, how can people find out more about Refine and if they live in Mobile or have a family member, how can they contact you?
We'll put all this in the show notes.
Yeah. Cool. So our website is www.refineptp.com. That is PTP, pizza, taco, pizza, or potato, tomato, potato.com.
Oh my gosh, I'm more confused
like those. So it's not refinept.com, it's refineptp. So potato, tomato, potato, or pizza, taco, pizza, or Peter, Tom, Peter. Whichever one you want to say.
We got it. The PTP.
We're gonna put it. We'll type it out and emphasize the PTP.
Yep.
With insurance, I always have to reiterate because they always want to say refinept.com, and I have to always say PTP, and then I have to go into those. So
gotcha.
Love it.
Yep. Same thing on Instagram, refineptp, and then my personal one, it's KW Thibodeaux, last name. It'll be in the show notes. So.
Great.
Cool.
We'll put all that in the show notes. And the last thing I want to ask you, and you've always got a good one. What is one good quote that we can end this episode on?
Oh gosh,
that's the hardest question.
That's a very hard question. I don't know if I have one quote.
You gotta have one. You can't have two. It's gotta be one.
You can squeeze two in.
I put this quote. I'll have to think about this quote and put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Wait, no.
You want to put them on the spot?
No, you just give us one. If it's a Bible,
we're gonna sit here in silence. We're gonna be still. We're gonna be still. I don't have to think about this one.
It can be. It doesn't. We won't hold it to you as your death, like as the quote we would put on your tombstone. But
yeah,
just something recently that you've enjoyed.
A quote. Okay, I'll give you a quote I really like. I'll have to look it up to not butcher it. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We'll give you some.
I'll clip to it.
All right. So this is a combination of work and faith.
Is this from a book? What's the book? There's a book out there about work and faith. Is it?
There's quite a few. I've read the one from Tim Keller on Every Good Endeavor.
Yes, that one.
It's really good. I have another one I'm reading right now. It's really good. But all right, you ready?
Let's do it.
The Christian shoemaker does his duty not by putting little crosses on his shoes, but by making good shoes, because God is interested in good craftsmanship.
I like that.
That is beautiful. And who said that?
Martin Luther.
Martin Luther. All right.
Wow.
That's what they said. So maybe he didn't actually say that, but everyone on Google says he said that. But I've read it in a lot of books on work and faith, and just knowing that, hey, like we're called to do good work, and that is a part of our duty, or our, calling as Christians, is to do good work, not just to put little crosses on the shoes or to tell everyone about what we believe all the time, but just to provide good care and to love people. That is a part of work too,
That's awesome.
So that's my quote.
I love it. I love it. That's
Kyle,
good.
dude, thank you so much for being on. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thank you, man.
I enjoyed it.
I'm
It's always fun hanging out with y'all.